So it's exam time, and my plan is to study math, then do my project, then study English. But what I end up doing is actually I watch some TV, then I play some video games, and then I go outside and hang out with my friends. Does this sound familiar? So the key lesson I learned from repeating that again and again is that it turns out you could not just will yourself to do this, but it turns out also that there's a solution to this problem of procrastination and other behaviors you don't want to do but you still do. And that solution is something we could learn from athletes. So think of your favorite athlete or an athlete you look up to. Let's say Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan did not will himself like overnight to become the great athlete that he was. So he had to do the work. He had to train every day. He had to make sacrifices. He had to mold himself to become that great athlete. So what could we learn there? So being that student that we are called to be, being that son, being that friend that we are supposed to be, also takes practice, like similar to how athletes need to practice to become good, to become great at their sport. So first, let's see or let's break down that idea. For us to become a better student, a better son, a better friend, let's ask first, what does it mean to be better? So just take a look around you. Take a look at your friends, your relatives, people you look up to, and let's ask ourselves, what makes them good? What makes them better? So perhaps if we have a friend who is always cheerful, that friend of ours is good in that way, that he or she is cheerful. Or perhaps we have that classmate who is very hardworking. That classmate of ours is good because he is hardworking. Or perhaps you have an auntie who always has your back. So she is good because of her loyalty and consistency of her help to you. So those are the things that make people good. So an example is that those examples: cheerfulness, hard work, loyalty. So the ancient Greeks had a name for this. It's virtues. So virtues is a word that has the same root as virility. So these virtues are essentially the building blocks of being a man. And like the skill of Michael Jordan, athletic skill, they could also be trained. So how do athletes train? So they don't just go to a game and just start playing games day in day out. So they drill their specific aspects of the game. For instance, they drill the free throw, they drill dribbling, or the crossover. For basketball players, we could learn from this. So we need to learn how to drill each of these virtues. So, for example, going back to our example of procrastination. how do we fix this? So what do we need to drill? We could look at this in two aspects. So one is the virtue itself of greater self mastery, so that when you say I'm going to do this, so you'll do it. So that is something that you need to practice to overcome that resistance. And second is the our actual techniques, like for instance having a schedule, knowing how to rest well, and starting your day right. So these are techniques that you could also practice. So we could train these habits like athletes. So how do we find what's the venue for this training? So there's no basketball court, there's no gym for these habits. So, but actually there is a venue. It's like the gym for these habits, and those are and this is like the daily challenges we face in life. So we could take a look at them, or we could look at them as these opportunities to practice these different virtues that we need to overcome things like procrastination. So for instance, simply, what is a small easy way to practice self mastery? So you could start with, for instance, eating more of that food you don't like, or eating less of the food you like. You could start by, smiling when, perhaps when you're annoyed. So those things are great practice for this greater challenge of having a schedule and then fulfilling the schedule. Or that would be the practice itself. Start with an easy schedule, perhaps during the vacation, and just follow it. It doesn't have to be like that, intense week of the, final exam week. It could be just like simply, okay, I will play basketball at this time. I will do my prayer at this time. I will take lunch at this time. So having a schedule and following it. And you will find yourself at times having some resistance. It's like even with like enjoyable things sometimes. I'm supposed to be playing basketball now, but I feel lazy. So when you overcome that, when you start overcoming that, you will gradually build that strength of self mastery. So, but these things should be planned out on a one-on-one conversation. So we could have that after this after you watch this. So what we're talking about here is actually much bigger than just fixing procrastination, because each one of you is called to do something great in this life. Perhaps it's to become, a good doctor, engineer, lawyer, entrepreneur, or whatever your professional calling will be. And it will be also to be a good son, to be a good father, perhaps, and a good friend. So in the next talks, we will look at each of these virtues and see how you can train for them, so that we can do the work and be the men we are called to be.